right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the On High Hoops podcast, an irregularly scheduled, irrelevant, and irreverent Big East Hoops podcast. I am Frank Molfetta. I am on high. Last week in this space, I covered my beloved Johnnies. This week, we're covering the whole Big East. So let's jump into it. A lot to cover here. I'm recording about midday on Saturday, so maybe things change after this. But here I am. So let's start with a quick roundup here around the league. Check in on where teams are at, where they are headed. Let's start at the top two. UConn up to number 9 in KenPom, number 8 in Torvik. They started the season murdering 2 cupcakes, although Danny Hurley didn't seem to like the beating they put on KenPom 360 New Haven, who probably hung around a little longer than they should have. Last weekend, UConn got their first real test. They hosted BYU at TD Garden in Boston. Silas Demery, huge in this one, 21 points on 6 of 12 shooting. Got to the line 11 times. You gotta love that aggressiveness if you're a UConn fan. He made 8 of those 11 free throws, threw in 7 assists. Caravan and Reed also had big games, 21 apiece. Caravan was a perfect 4 of 4 from deep. Solo ball, a little quiet, just 1 of 5 from 3, only 8 points on the night. BYU's size definitely presented some problems for UConn. UConn got out to a huge lead early, and in the second half, BYU came storming back on the back of AJ Debanza. AJ Debanza had 25 points. He played really well in the second half. I think he had something like 21 of those points in the second half alone. He was 8 of 14, 2 of 3 from deep, 6 boards. So all around a great performance from him. Then UConn has an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. They came back, hosted Arizona at Gamble this past Wednesday. They got a balanced performance here in their loss. They had 4 starters scoring 10 plus. Caravan, the odd starter out there, surprisingly. Final score in that one was 71-67 for the Wildcats of Arizona. The big headline here, Tyrus Reed missed out. That proved to be a big problem. Arizona has a fantastic front court. And while guard Jaden Bradley led the Wildcats in scoring, the Wildcats absolutely murdered UConn on the glass. UConn had an absolutely pathetic 56.7 defensive rebound percentage here without Reed in the lineup. The raw numbers there, the Cats pulled down 13 offensive boards to UConn's 17 defensive boards, so that is pretty eye-opening, and they won the overall rebounding battle 43-23. So it just underscores how important Tyrus Reed is to this UConn team, and his health is going to be something that you're going to have to monitor. It seems almost on a game-to-game basis until he proves that he's fully healthy. The Huskies going to go ahead and host Cupcake-ass Bryant, and then their gauntlet will continue playing Illinois at MSG and then traveling to the Fog to face Kansas on December 2nd. The Johnnies, my beloved Johnnies, they lost to Alabama 103-96. I did a full pot on that loss, so there's no need to go ahead and recap that. The Johnnies came back with big victories over William and Mary and Bucknell, beating William and Mary 93-60 and just absolutely murdering Bucknell 97-49. I'll have a pot out soon recapping these two, but hopefully I want to get to that tonight, kind of recap those two in depth and preview the Players era, but we'll see what happens there. For the Johnnies, though, it is the Players era next, heading out to Las Vegas. It'll be a huge week for the Johnnies. They got 5 quality out-of-conference games left. They're going to get 3 of them next week with Iowa State on Monday, Baylor on Tuesday, and an opponent to be determined Wednesday or Thursday. Should be a high major opponent. Let's move on, keeping going around the league. Let's talk about the pleasant surprises here. Of course, that's the headline of that group is Georgetown. They've been the belle of the ball so far in the Big East. They are still undefeated on the season. They have beaten 2 high major opponents. Those opponents Clemson, number 27 in Ken Palm, and that was a home game, 79-74 for the Hoyas. Ken Palm 50 Maryland. They went on the road and won that one 70-60. So impressive performances from the Hoyas so far against two, middle of the pack power conference teams that have, aspirations on making the tournament, legitimate aspirations of making the tournament. And for me, the Eyes certainly pass the eye test. They definitely look like a team that is in fact back. KJ Lewis and Malik Mack have been fantastic for the Hoyas. KJ Lewis, 19 points and 7 boards on average, and 14.8 and 3.5 assists for Mack. Shockingly, the third leading scorer for the Hoyas, erstwhile Johnny Vince Iwachukwu, posting 11.8 points and 4 boards in 21.3 minutes per game. The good news, Vince has played very well. The bad news, and there is two elements of it here. On the court, Julius Halaivanua has proven unable to stay on the floor. That's why Vince has gotten such a big opportunity. He's fouled out in 17 minutes versus Maryland and 8 minutes versus Clemson. And he's had trouble with fouls as well against the Cupcakes. And what's underscoring this and making it even worse is that it was announced earlier this week, Vince Iwachukwu undergoing a health procedure of some kind, going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. I'm not sure any details were really released publicly about what that was, but we know Vince has had those heart troubles at USC before he came to St. John's. And who knows, it could be that, could be anything else. It just was a nondescript report about what it was, but wishing Vince the best, whatever it is, and hopefully he can get back on the court soon. Just because you want the best for him, and also he is very important for the Hoyas. And Vince has proven capable this year of backing up Halaivanua. So they really do need him back out there. And despite the success, though, Georgetown still kind of struggling in the metrics. They're only 70th in Torvik and Ken Palm. If you remove the preseason, that gets them up to about 61st. So, they're improving. They're on an upward trajectory. Cooley's best teams have really never been that great metrically. I know Providence fans, as much as they hate Ed Cooley, they'll happily bash the metrics and have an antagonistic relationship with those metrics throughout Cooley's tenure, and still to this day, it kind of cost them during Kim's first year some bad metrics. And so, point here though, Cooley's teams never been particularly good metrically, but also we're seeing that upward trajectory with Georgetown. So keep winning those games, and I think that will work out. The Hoyas are off to exotic Orlando, Florida for Feast Week. That's the Terry's Chocolates Invitational. They're going to face Dayton with their first game. Dayton coming off a win against Marquette. We'll get to that in a moment. And then they'll face either BYU or Miami in the Terry's Chocolates Invitational second game, be it the championship, hopefully, or the consolation game. BYU, that would be the third Big East opponent that the BYU Cougars have faced this year. So just a little interesting tidbit there, but it could be them, could be Miami, depending on who wins or loses those opening games in the Terry's Chocolates Invitational. Villanova, another pleasant surprise so far. They've climbed up Ken Palm from a preseason rank of 50, which I know I felt was a little high. I think a lot of other people felt it was kind of high too. But they've looked good in a season opening loss to BYU. They hung tough with those Cougars, and then they bounced back with a 20-point win over Queens from North Carolina. They're a frisky mid-major this year. And then they absolutely smashed Sacred Heart, 34-point victory there. And then they, had a little bit of a struggle, but not a major one, a 10-point W over Duquesne. That margin probably makes it seem a little closer than it was. I don't think the Dukes ever really threatened Villanova in that game. And then they went on a Big 5 road trip cross town to face LaSalle. This was the boon of Kyle Neptune's existence at Villanova, these Big 5 games. No problem for Kevin Willard in his first Big 5 game at Villanova. They took care of LaSalle on the road by 15. Bryce Lindsay has been an absolute star, posting 20.4 points per game, shooting 50% from deep. Of course, that's not going to keep up, but I do expect him to be a 40% shooter from three this year. He is that good of a shooter. He's that good of a scorer, and I just love his offensive game. Big man Duke Brennan leads all of Division I with 14.4 rebounds per game. Really impressive there. I think he just really fits what Willard is trying to do defensively, and he's a guy who knows his role and goes out there and does it really, really well. So kudos to Willard and kudos to Brennan there. Freshman Caden Lewis also looks very comfortable at the point so far. He's got 12.2 points per game, 5.4 assists per game. So you're getting exactly what you needed from Caden Lewis. He's running that point very well. For Villanova, they're not really going to get a test again until December 9th when they're heading to Ann Arbor to face Michigan. But they will get a Big Five rivalry game with Temple right before that Michigan game. Somewhere Kyle Neptune's out there having Big Five PTSD flashbacks, and not to get sidetracked, but I'm not sure there's a bigger indictment of the Kyle Neptune era than how poorly he performed in the Big Five. He had a 3-1 record year one, losing at Temple. He was 0-3 in year two, losing at Penn, losing home to the other SJU, and losing on a neutral floor to Drexel. And then in year three, 2-1, lost at the other SJU, and then won at home versus Penn and Temple. And if you look back at what Jay Wright did, Jay Wright lost. The last time Jay Wright lost a Big Five game was 2019 at UPenn. I believe Jordan Dingle was on that roster and had a big game for UPenn, so that can help explain that a little bit. But before that, you'd have to go all the way back to 2013 to find a Jay Wright team losing in the Big Five. And that was also the last time they lost more than one Big Five game in a season, losing to LaSalle, at LaSalle and home, to a Temple team that was actually pretty damn good that year. So, not the worst loss with that Temple one, but losing at LaSalle that year was definitely a little bit problematic for them. Third pleasant surprise on the season, a team that I greatly underestimated, with my dearest apologies to the folks in Indiana, Butler. I definitely underestimated them. They've looked, pretty good to start the season. They did lose to SMU in Dallas, a real heartbreaker. A reverse layup from Jerron Pierre Jr. from SMU with 4 seconds on the clock. Won that game. A Fuzzle Bumpkins desperation three at the buzzer from 35 feet, probably, I'd say. Hit the rim. It looked really close, but hit the rim and unfortunately bounced off. But the offense as a whole has looked really, really good. They're scoring 92.4 points per game, and that's with two high major opponents on that schedule so far, with SMU, and just last night, or maybe 2 days, no, just last night, the Bulldogs took down South Carolina in the Greenbrier Classic in West Virginia. Going into that SC game, I didn't update my stats here, but going into that SC game, Bunley Fizzlepot, 47.8% from deep on nearly 6 attempts per game. He led the Bulldogs with 18 points against the Cox, 5 of 11 shooting, 3 of 5 from deep in that game yesterday. He also had 3 assists, 2 steals. Michael Ajayi has had a double-double in that game, 15 points. I should have turned off my stuff there. Let's put that in Do Not Disturb mode. All right. Yeah, Michael Ajayi had double-double, 15 points of his own on 8 of 16 shooting, cleaning the glass with 12 boards. Michael Ajayi has been very good so far this year as well. I had my question marks about him. I didn't write him off, but I was, concerned about his performances at Gonzaga. You don't see too many guys fail to meet their potential at Gonzaga, let's say. But he's had 14.8 points and 11.8 points with 4 assists coming into that South Carolina game. So you're getting exactly what you want from him. Next up for Butler today at the Greenbrier, they're going to get the University of Virginia a chance for a real quality W here. Butler currently sitting 57th in KenPom, and then 73rd at Torvik, 42nd if you remove the preseason projections. The unpleasant surprises. Nobody wants to talk about these, but we got to. Creighton has handled his cupcakes. They beat South Dakota by 26, University of Maryland Eastern Shore by 39, North Dakota by 15. But in between those games, they took a trip to Spokane into the kennel, where the Zags absolutely mollywopped the Jays 90 to 63. The Jays shot absolutely pathetic. Just 7 of 25 from deep in that game. They defended even worse, allowing the Zags to shoot 65.1% from 2. They lost the rebound battle 41-33. They committed as many turnovers as they had made field goals, 18. Just an absolutely shit-tastic performance from the Blue Jays. Burn that tape, move on. Gonzaga looks like an absolutely elite team and a Final Four contender once again this year. Still plenty of time for Creighton in this non-conference to make its mark and turn things around. And they'll be joining my beloved Johnnies in Vegas, back for the second year in the Players Invitational. Just like the Johnnies, Creighton will get Baylor and ISU. They'll get the reverse of the Johnnies. They'll get Baylor on Monday, ISU on Tuesday. For the Blue Jays, things didn't go well last year in Sin City. They went 1-2 with the lone win coming over lowly Notre Dame in that third place game. So McD and Co. going to try to exercise those demons this time around. And I mentioned there's still plenty of time for them to turn it around. We've seen this from McD's Creighton teams before, where they started the season slow and then picked up steam late in the non-con. So they'll be looking to do that again, and it really starts for them this week. I think they need to really get 2 wins here in Las Vegas to start to turn things around. Unfortunately, trouble for the Blue Jays. It was announced yesterday. Jackson McAndrew out for the season with a foot injury. That's a huge blow. He was the starting 4 for this team. That's going to hurt them from a depth perspective for sure. And also there's going to be some drop-off in that starting lineup. It's just inevitable. Anytime you lose a starter, those starters are starters for a reason. So that's going to fall to Isaac Trout. He's a junior. He's 6'10", so they're not going to lose much size-wise. They're definitely going to lose some shooting. Trout, not nearly as good of a shooter as McAndrew is, but probably a bit better defender. So, it's a yin and a yang. It's a give and a take. I think it's definitely going to hurt them. You can't lose a guy like McAndrew, who is poised for a breakout season and not have any drop off. So that's something they're going to have to overcome, and we'll see if they're able to next week in Vegas. Moving on to Marquette, another team that's disappointing, but they've also taken care of their cupcakes. However, they've also not won a high major game yet, which is also true of Creighton. The Golden Eagles fell to Indiana in Chicago, and also Maryland and Dayton at home. That Dayton loss really stings. This is not the best Dayton team out there. Simply, again, you can't lose at home this year versus that Dayton team. Chase Ross, the only guy who looks like he's ready to step into the bigger role. That is part of Shaka's no portal system. Developing guys, having them, gradually build and learn and grow and ultimately step into bigger roles as juniors and seniors. Chase Ross has answered that bell. 19.8 points per game, 4 boards, 3.8 assists on 48% from the field, 30% from deep, 77% from the line. I expect that 3-point percentage to improve. He's a good shooter. He should get that closer to 35 by in the near future. The really troublesome part about this, though, is kind of how they lost. They got absolutely boat raced by Indiana. They were never competitive in that game. And then you fast forward to the Maryland game. You look at that. There was a healthy lead for Marquette in that game, even into the second half, and coming down the stretch, they just let Maryland back in the game, and they did so despite Maryland being without one of their starters, but also they lost Farrell Payne during the game to a serious injury, and wish Farrell Payne the best, and hopefully he recovers soon for Maryland. But for Marquette, you've got a team missing two key players, and you had a healthy lead and let them back into that game. That's simply unacceptable. And I think that's the biggest red flag for the Golden Eagles here. That loss, you could forgive the Indiana loss. Neutral floor, decent Indiana squad this year. But losing to a Maryland team that doesn't project well when they're fully healthy, and they were, had two key injuries, and then losing to Dayton at home, those are just tough losses that are really going to weigh down your resume, as I don't think either of those teams will be in at-large contention come March. So an uphill climb here for the Golden Eagles if they want to get back to the tournament. They're going to face Oklahoma the day after Thanksgiving, once again back in Chicago. I think this is at a different arena, so maybe it's a little bit better juju for the Golden Eagles in Chicago. They've fallen all the way to 69th. Nice in KenPom. That's a 22% drop from the preseason, where there was 60. That was just a 22-point drop from the preseason, and now they're also 62 in Torvik. But if you remove those preseason projections, as you can do with Torvik, they fall all the way to 85th. So not great, Bob, for the Golden Eagles. Similar to the Golden Eagles, Providence has lost its only two high major games to middling high major teams, or in one case a pretty bad high major team. They lost to Vitek. They're decent, probably going to be better than expected, and definitely will be in contention for a tournament bid come March. So not the worst win, but that game was at Mohegan Sun, a virtual home game for the Friars. Friars were in it all the way. They had leads at various points. Ultimately, Neo Abdalis 3 sent that game to overtime late, and it was all Vitek in overtime there. Abdalis was just absolutely incredible here. 33 points against the Friars, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Honestly, I'm scratching my head on that one. Rick Pitino was the former Panathinaikos coach. I don't know where he was, asleep at the wheel maybe, trying to recruit a kid like that from a team that he used to coach in a country where he still has deep ties. I don't know how you let that kid get all the way to Blacksburg, fucking Virginia, but here we are. For the Friars against Colorado, they were down 1 at the half, and then it was all Colorado the second half, winning by 9. Kim English is getting a little bit hot there for good reason. If you're going to be a tournament team, and that was really the expectation for the Friars this year, and still should be the expectation, they have a ton of talent on this roster, at least offensively. Those are the games you got to win if you're an NCAA tournament team, plain and simple. Colorado's not an easy place to play by any stretch. It's the altitude. They have one of the best home court advantages in the country because of that altitude, but you have to find a way. Good teams do, and the Friars did not. The other problem for the Friars here, there just are not that many opportunities left. Today they're going to face Penn State once again at Mohegan Sun, and then they're heading to San Diego for Thanksgiving to face Wisconsin and either Florida or TCU in the Rady Children's Invitational. Yes, that is the complete official name of that tournament. Sounds awful. Sounds like a fucking Epstein party that Bill and Donald Trump would have attended. But anyway, Wisconsin here, practically a must-win game for the Friars, I think. They need that resume line, but also TCU has not been good. They lost a game to New or fucking Means this year already, so you really, really, really don't want to face TCU. That's a game that's not going to do much for your resume. You really, if you're Providence, given the lack of opportunities that remain on this schedule, you really want to get that first win against Wisconsin and hopefully face Florida in that second game. and at least give yourself a chance to get 2 quality wins. But even if you go 1-1 with the loss being to Florida, I think that's a decent enough trip to help get the season back on track for the Friars. I alluded to it. The offense for the Friars has not been the problem. They've looked fantastic on that end. Edwards, 20.4 points. Sellers, 16.6. Vox, 14.8. Corey Floyd, 12.0. Ryan Mila, 11. And freshman Jameer Jones with 10. That's 6 players in double figures offensively. Pretty impressive. One notable name missing there. Hasn't gotten going offensively. Oswin Ermunse. I've been high on Oswin. He's actually shooting like 77% from the field or something like that, but he's only been on the floor about 22 or 23 minutes a game. I think that is a major problem for the Friars. Obviously, it's not hurting the offense, but it's really, really hurting the defense. Oswin pulls down 6.2 defensive boards and 4 blocks per game. He simply has to be. He has to get more minutes. He's the defensive anchor on this team. He is your rim protector. He's got to be playing 30 minutes per game. There's simply no other ifs, ands, or buts about it for the Friars. If Oswin cannot play 30 minutes a game, and it hasn't been foul trouble for him, it's just he's only been getting 23 minutes a game, and I don't know what Kim English is doing or thinking on that front. But Cole Hargrove and Duncan Powell are just not getting it done defensively in the front court. It's been awful when they're on the floor. And Oswin is not. The D rating with Oswin, the defensive efficiency rating with Oswin on the bench, 128.1. That's 128.1 points per 100 possession with Oswin on the bench. That is the 7th percentile nationally. That is fucking atrocious. With Oswin on the floor, 97.9. That's an over 30-point difference per 100 possessions. That is huge, huge, huge difference. So you just have to get Oswin on the floor more often. You have to get him more minutes. You simply cannot continue to run Cole Hargrove, especially out there. He's just been awful, and he's gotten the bulk of the minutes that should be going to Oswin to get Oswin closer to that 30-point mark. So, if, looking at the numbers there, Torvik has PC 235th in adjusted defensive efficiency overall, so that just kind of underscores how bad that has been for the Friars. I don't have their overall KenPom number here. Let's see what we got. They're down to 70th in KenPom. They're at 73rd in Torvik. 110th in Torvik if you remove the preseason projections. So kind of the anti-Georgetown, and I know both fan bases hate to hear their names linked, but there you have it. One team trending up, one team trending down in the efficiency metrics. So work to do for the Friars, and not a lot of non-conference opportunities left to do it in. Moving on down the line, let's talk about the bottom of the conference. Nobody likes to talk about the bottom of the conference, but you got to do it. I'm here to talk about all the teams. So let's start with Seton Hall. Seton Hall, undefeated. Kudos to the Hall for that. But that looks a little bit less impressive when you see who it is that they have played so far. They beat St. Peter's on opening night, came back, struggled with Wagner and Walsh Gymnasium, winning by just 7. They bounced back with a healthy showing, 23-point victory over Fairfield, and then they beat Monmouth by 12 and New Haven by just 23. New Haven, of course, one of the 5 or 6 worst programs in the country, a newly promoted to D1 program. This is their first year playing D1 basketball, so, not what you want. You really need to blow a team like that out by at least 30. The problem for Seton Hall, it's been the offense. The defense has been fantastic, 98.2 adjusted defensive efficiency per KenPom. That's 28th in the country. The offense, though, ranking just 150th. So the Pirates need to find a way to get it together offensively. I think that Wagner game really underscores it. 68 points against a Wagner team that didn't even have a head coach like 3 weeks ago. They were like 1 or 2 weeks before the season. They were still searching for a head coach. So, they really have to be better offensively than that. They've got some opportunities on the schedule still. They're heading off to Maui. They're going to open with NC State. That's going to be a tough one. NC State really good this year with their new head coach, Will Wade. They're currently sitting 19th in KenPom. And then they're going to get 2 more games in Maui, some combination of USC, Texas, ASU, Wazoo, Boise State, and Chaminade. Other than that, the only remaining games for the Pirates, you got a middling K-State squad and just a very bad Rutgers squad that just lost to Central Connecticut State. So really, if you're the Pirates, you got to come back from Maui with 2 quality wins here if you want to, boost your profile and get yourself up into a range where you have a shout at a tournament bid. And I really think that's it's gonna require them, beating NC State most likely so that you can play a half-decent squad in the second round. If you lose both games, you're going to end up with Chaminade in the third game, and nobody wants that. Although, who knows? Maybe Chaminade can upset somebody like Boise State. We've seen Boise State lose to one D2 squad already this year, so I wouldn't put that outside the realm of possibility. But it's very likely they'll face Chaminade if they lose both of the first 2. So you got to win at least one of those first 2, and then, take down whoever you play in the third, and come out of there with a couple of at least respectable wins like Boise State, Wazoo, Arizona State, respectable wins. But if you can knock off, NC State and USC or Texas, that's looking much better for you. Pirates currently sitting 89th in KenPom overall, 104 in Torvik, and 79th if you remove the Torvik projections. So upward trajectory there from preseason projections, which is always good to see. Oh, DePaul. I don't want to talk about DePaul. My sweet, beautiful Mons. The Mons. Such high hopes for you guys this year. And so far, it has been rough. The Mons coming off a shit-tacular loss to just a really bad Buffalo team, currently sitting 241st in KenPom. That loss at Wintrust, 66-53 Buffalo. The Blue Demons never really were in it. And then they came back and actually looked half decent in a competitive game at Wintrust against Northwestern, but ultimately fell by just 2 points to their crosstown rivals. So that leaves the Blue Demons between a rock and a hard place. There's simply not a lot of great opportunities left here on the schedule for a big win. The biggest opportunity really will come in the Emerald Coast Classic down in Florida. That starts right after Thanksgiving, next Friday. They'll get Georgia Tech in the first game. Georgia Tech is not good. They're a bottom 10 or 15 high major program in the country, maybe probably even bottom 5, I would say. They're currently 95th in KenPom and trending in the wrong direction. So really a game you have to win if you're the Blue Demons. And if you do that, you'll get either LSU or Drake. LSU is an interesting case. They kind of came in here as a bottom barrel SEC squad, or at least that's what they were projected to be at the start of the season. They were 57th, I think, in KenPom to start the season, but they're up to 36th now. They've taken care of business, blowing out 5 cupcakes, the best of which being FIU, who they beat by 17. They also beat New Orleans, something some other high major teams have not been able to do. So I guess that's a decent win as well. So yeah, they're up to 36 in KenPom LSU. So if you're the Blue Demons, that's the goal. Get out there in Florida, beat Georgia Tech, hope LSU takes care of business versus Drake, and then you'll get an opportunity to get a decent win against an SEC opponent. And that's pretty much all they can do if you're the Blue Demons at this point. After that, the best remaining opponent on their schedule is Wichita State, who's just barely clinging to a a top 100 Ken Pom ranking down at 94th, so basically the same tier as Georgia Tech, but albeit Wichita State is a mid-major. Wichita State coming off a loss at Boise, 62-59. Other than that, all they've done is take care of a few cupcakes, although I guess one of them was Loyola Chicago, who shouldn't be a cupcake, but is all the way down at 246 in Ken Pom at the moment and has had just an absolutely abysmal start to the season. So, Wichita State, nothing special there. So, again, really underscores the importance for the Blue Demons of getting 2 wins in Florida. The Mons down to 113th in Ken Pom from 78th preseason, down to 89th in Torvik, but just ugly 149th if you remove Torvik's preseason projections. So we need better from the Mons. And bringing up the rear, Rick Pitino's son, Richard, and the Xavier Musketeers. The Mons have the worst loss in the Big East at the moment with that loss to Buffalo, but the Musketeers have absolutely looked far worse than the Blue Demons overall. Xavier's fallen from 62nd preseason to 102nd currently in Ken Pom. They've never finished worse than 81st in Ken Pom, in the Ken Pom era, which is like 27 or 28 years now. So not what you want if you are a Musketeers fan. They beat a half-decent Marist squad, but only by 4. Marist currently 167th in Ken Pom, so again, half-decent, but a team you definitely should beat by more than 4. And then they struggled with lowly Lemoyne, the Lemoyne Dolphins. And if I told you the Lemoyne mascot and nickname is the Dolphins, I would probably assume they were from Florida, but no, the Lemoyne Dolphins from beautiful, sunny, tropical Syracuse, New York. I don't think they see many Dolphins up there, but there you have it. And after barely handling Lemoyne, the inevitable happened, and Xavier took, I struggle to call it a bad loss. They lost to Santa Clara, but at home, it's a game that you were favored in, a game that you should win if you're a high major program. Santa Clara is a very good squad this year, actually, though. They're a West Coast Conference competitor. They should have a chance at a bid given the quality of that conference this year. They're currently up to 73rd in Ken Pom, but that game was just completely non-competitive from Xavier's perspective. They lost 87-68, and frankly, I mean, it's hard to say a loss was not as competitive as a 19-point deficit indicates, but this one was absolutely less competitive than that 19-point deficit dictated. Xavier was just out of it early and never really got back in it. They came back, went to Iowa, lost by 19 again. A much more forgivable loss. Iowa is a really good team with one of the best coaches in the country, Ben McCollum. But again, they just did not look part of a high major team. And, one of the things that's really crazy here is that, they've gotten some good performances. All Right is shooting 52.6% from 3. Jovan Milicevic. Jovan Milicevic looked pretty good the last 2 games. I've been pretty high on him. Those games were Iowa and Old Dominion. He's posted 17.5 points per game on 50, 20, and 71.4 shooting. So hopefully he can continue that trajectory and be really good for the Musketeers moving forward. The Muskies down to 97 in Torvik, 163rd if you remove the preseason projections. They're going to face Georgia in the Charleston Classic, or they did face Georgia in the Charleston Classic yesterday. Lost that game 78-77, so just another loss. At least they were competitive in this one. They're going to get West Virginia on Sunday down in Charleston. So still an opportunity there to pick up a decent win. West Virginia, a pretty good opponent. And, frankly, if they're going to turn the season around at all, they're going to need to get this one against West Virginia and come back and get Cincinnati before the non-conference is over. Those are their last 2 quality opportunities here. So, that's the story for the Musketeers. So let's move along. That's all around the Big East, let's talk about a storyline of the week. In this case, I want to talk about the Big East standing as a whole vis-a-vis other conferences. There's been a lot of hyperventilation this year about how bad the Big East has been, and there's no sugarcoating it. It has not been great, but it's not as bad as people are making it out to be, and it's not over yet. The cake has not really been baked. It's really fucking far from being fully baked. Currently, the Big East is 4-11 versus the other Power 5 conferences. That's obviously not good. But if you look at what is left here, there is plenty of opportunities for the Big East to make its mark in the non-conference play. They've only played 15 high major games, and they're going to have a total of 43, somewhere between 43 and 51 high major games, depending on how some of these contingent matchups in the MTEs work out. So that's going to be at least 28 more, maybe as many as 36 more non-conference high major opponents, and of course there's a couple of quality mid-major games baked in there as well. Somebody else is playing Dayton. I think it was Georgetown is playing Dayton. So you've got some half decent mid-major games in there as well that'll help boost the conference's profile. So plenty of time for the league to recover, and again, it's not just the sheer amount of games too, but it's who's playing them on the Big East side and who the opponents are on the other side of the ledger, because obviously not all high majors are the same. So just to break it down, let's start with St. John's, preseason number 1 in the Big East coaches poll. We've still got games left against Iowa State, Baylor, and an unknown third team down in Vegas, probably going to be another high major, or at the very least a top mid-major. Johnny's also got Ole Miss and Kentucky, so 2 SEC teams that are probable tournament teams. Ole Miss will come to the Garden, and the Johnnies will head down to Catlanta to face the Wildcats in a neutral site game where we'll probably be outnumbered fan-wise. But that's 4 games against the top 2 conferences in the country, and then a 5th quality opponent as well. 2 Big 12 teams, 2 SEC teams. Metrics preseason Big East favorite, UConn. They'll continue their gauntlet of a schedule. They get Illinois. They get Illinois at home, I think. Then they're traveling to Kansas to the Fog, and then they will get. Then they'll play the SEC games against the defending national champs Florida. That'll be at MSG, and then they'll be hosting Texas up in Campbell or Hartford. I'm not sure which. Creighton, as bad as they've been, I talked about it. We've seen this from McDermott's teams in the past. They are capable of turning it around, and they'll have their opportunities as well. They'll get 3 opportunities in Vegas. They'll have the inverse of St. John's, where they'll get to face Baylor on Monday, ISU on Tuesday, and then they'll get a third opponent to be determined. They'll also get a game against Nebraska, who's looked really well out of the Big Ten this year, and a home game against Kansas State, who has not looked as good, but is still a middle-of-the-pack high major Big 12 opponent. Villanova, one of the pleasant surprises this year, has a lot of opportunities left. They're going to get they got 3 opportunities left, at least Pitt, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So 2 really good Big Ten squads, and an ACC squad that, figures to be on the bubble, maybe just on the wrong side of it, but still a good opportunity there to get a win over a fellow team on the bubble. I think Villanova has a chance to be on the bubble come March, and so getting a win over Pitt would do wonders, and maybe getting one of those Michigan-Wisconsin games would be huge as well. Georgetown, they're going to head out to Chapel Hill to face UNC. Butler, another pleasant surprise. They've got a big showdown today with Virginia from the Greenbrier Classic. And then they're going to get a neutral site game as well with Northwestern, so maybe they can avenge the Blue Demons' loss. Providence, they've got a chance to redeem itself. We talked about this in depth, but they've got a chance to redeem themselves in San Diego with Wisconsin and hopefully Florida or TCU in the second game. Marquette, again, a team that's looked terrible, but a team that you generally expect to be near the top of the Big East. They've still got 3 more chances against Wisconsin, Purdue, and Oklahoma. And then if you look at it, you exclude the bottom 3, which I'll call DePaul, Seton Hall, and Xavier. you still got 26 shots for the top 8 teams in this conference to really make their mark in non-conference and boost their metrics and boost the profile of the league. And also, if you look at this 4-11 record against the high majors, the bottom 4 teams, Marquette, DePaul, Xavier, and Hall, they account for 6 of those 11 losses. The top 2 teams, UConn and St. John's, only got 1 loss apiece against high majors. So, again, not the end of the world. Plenty of opportunities, plenty and plenty of games for the top teams as well, which is really the more important aspect of it here, because those are the teams that are going to be competing for the NCAA tournament bids come March. And I mean, people wrote this league off last year, and the league went out and got 5 bids. This year, the dynamics will be different in good ways and bad ways, helpful ways and unhelpful ways. There won't be a league nearly as dominant as last year's SEC, so you don't have to worry about a league getting however many fucking bids the SEC got last year. The Mountain West looks down as well. I mean, they could be a 1, maybe 2 bid league this year. The Big East basement won't nearly be as bad. We're not going to have a team below 175 in net KenPom like we've had for 4 straight years. I think on the negative side, the middle of the Big East is definitely down a little bit from where it's been the past few years. But again, it's early. And I'm still somewhat bullish, all things considered, still somewhat bullish on the Big East's ability to get 4, maybe even 5 bids. Again, Creighton with that slow history under McDermott, I think they will recover even without McAndrew. I think Villanova, Georgetown, Butler, between the 3 of them, I think at least one of those teams is going to get a bid. I would think maybe 2 out of 3 of them can get a bid as well. And of course, St. John's and UConn, I don't think anybody expects either of them to miss the tournament this year. So, to put a pin and a bow on it, all of this hyperventilation about the league just feels a little premature to me. But I think it's a little bit of a function of something I've talked about a million times, right? It's what makes the Big East the Big East. It's what makes Big East fandom special. It's what makes the level of camaraderie that we have here in this league. It's that, the barbarian is always at the gate. It has been since day one. The Big East is a conference that should not even exist. It's a conference that is solely basketball and, Olympic sports. Solely basketball in a football world. Football has driven this bus since 2013 and forced the Catholic 7 and their newcomers to go ahead and, create their own league and focus on basketball. And so ever since then, every high major league, every commentator, everybody has been waiting for the Big East to stumble and falter, and so that they could dance on their grave. I mean, some people have even danced on our grave already prematurely. ESPN, cough, cough. But it ain't that bad. It hasn't been that bad. It wasn't that bad last year, and I don't expect it'll be as bad as the worst pessimists predict this year at this point. So, strap in, buck up, and let's hope these teams can come through and start winning some big games. Stat of the day. Woo! I love stats. Everybody knows I'm a metrics kind of guy. So let's give a shout with this week's stat of the day to Seton Hall. Yeah, I shit on Seton Hall a lot. I'm not really a fan of Seton Hall. I'm a Johnny's fan, so, they're our closest geographic rival in the conference. But they've been fantastic defensively. You mentioned it earlier, 28th in adjusted defensive efficiency per KenPom. The biggest reason for that, they have thrown an absolute block party on defense. They have the #1 block rate in the country per KenPom. They're blocking 30.7% of their opponent's shots. Block rate leader Stefan Payne is #2 in the country in individual block percentage with 17.6, but he's not even the highest block rate player on his own team. No, that goes to freshman Najee Hines, 24.1% block rate all by himself. And I know some folks will say, well, they've only played a bunch of cupcakes. And yeah, that's true. And I'll be the first to shit on Seton Hall for not playing anybody yet. But the competition level hasn't been great. But I don't think that really matters here. plenty of teams have played a lot of cupcakes at this point, but if you look at the overall rankings and block rate, Seton Hall is at 30.7%. As I mentioned, the next highest block rate, 22.2%, Louisiana Tech. And in third place, the second highest high major block rate is Georgia with 22%. So you simply don't. And if you look at the list after that, it's very tightly bunched. It goes down by less than 1 percentage point from spot to spot, all the way down, as far as I scrolled anyway. So they are far and away the block rate leaders. You obviously have 2 elite shot blockers on this roster with Stephon Payne and Najee Hines. So, kudos to Hall for that. If they can figure that offense out, they've got a real chance to, to do some damage, sneak into the conversation for a tournament bid. So, let's hope for their sake they find some scoring. All right, this is my favorite part of the show, the Schadenfreude Minute. This is the part of the show where we check in with the erstwhile Big East members and see how things are going in their new conferences. This week, let's check in with Rutgers and BC. We've discussed BC on this pod previously based on their loss at FAU. Boy, oh boy, it only got worse for BC. And they now share a loss with Rutgers. Both teams lost to Central Connecticut State. With all due respect to Pat Sellers, who's actually a pretty good coach, the CCSU other Blue Devils are still an NEC team. They're still in a bottom barrel conference. They're a program that no high major team should ever be losing to. And hilariously enough, the other Blue Demons just 2-2 in their 4 Division I games so far, beating BC and Rutgers, but losing to Quinnipiac and UMass. So, kudos to the other Blue Devils, BC and Rutgers. LOL. I hope it's been worth it. Enjoy your shitty basketball programs. So, that was a long one, about 50 minutes or so. Big week ahead for the Big East with Feast Week on tap. I'll be back at the end of next week to recap it all. If you like what you're hearing, please follow, like, subscribe, do all that good shit so that you can get this podcast moving forward. Wish you guys all a happy Feast Week and an even happier Thanksgiving, and I will see you on the flip side.